Welcome to Clean Slate by Desjardins, the podcast where there are no awkward money questions. I'm Jessica Moorhouse, and in each episode, we're going to take a look at the turning points in people's lives and explore young Canadians answering those big existential questions about their journeys and their finances. It's time to go beyond the money and see how these big questions impact everything that we do. Clean Slate is by Desjardins, a cooperative who is on a mission to enrich people's lives. They're about more than just money. They're a financial institution that believes in the spirit of community. And today I'm talking to Tessa Garcia. Welcome, Tessa.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Love your jacket. Love everything that's going on. I guess we had the same idea in mind when we came here today.
We did.
Which
love a twinning moment.
Hey, I love a twinning moment, especially for someone who I don't know anything about fashion and you do. And I feel like I got it right this time seeing you come in like that.
I feel like we nailed it.
We definitely nailed it. Hashtag nailed it. Hashtag nailed it. Well, I'm so excited to have you here to talk about some really exciting things about your journey and, of course, my favorite topic, money. So let's kind of dive in. And I'd love to know a little bit about your background and how you got into the world of fashion and then eventually start your own company called MIJA Boots.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I'm 32. I've got a son back at home in Vancouver, married to my husband, Danny, and I've kind of not always, but I kind of started more around 2012 and getting into fashion and content creation and things like that. And I basically started as a content creator on Instagram when Instagram first came out a long time ago. And then I decided to launch my first business, which was Cake for Breakfast. And that was a jewelry line. And I did that for a little while. And then it transitioned into a graphic t-shirt line, which I had for a while. And then I started doing more into clothing. So I started a brand called Max the Label that was a women's clothing line. And then eventually I started with MIJA, which is a women's boot line. So it's been a journey.
So what inspired you to start MIJA Boots? Because it sounds very different than your previous businesses. So what was the motivation to start a boot line?
Yeah, so I've always wanted a product. Like I mentioned, I had the clothing previously. With Max the Label, the clothing was manufactured overseas, so it was very far. I never really had like a strong tie to the story or the brand. I never really had a strong story for the brand, so I could never really put my whole heart into it. I always knew I wanted something that was manufactured in Mexico. My husband's from there, so I always had that in the back of my mind that I eventually wanted to find something that I could make in Mexico. And Danny and I, we travel to Mexico often. So I found our manufacturer's products while we were there, and we would purchase them, bring them home. People would ask where they were from. And that's when we decided to reach out to the manufacturer and work with him to create MIJA. MIJA is essentially an sort of endearing term for daughter in Spanish. And I started it when I was pregnant in 2019, and this is before we knew that Cruz was a boy. I was like, you're really messing with the branding.
Yeah.
We contacted, his name is Antonio. He's one maker. It's like very, handcrafted, rustic techniques, and he is one man with a family that makes the boots out of Leon. Leon is very famous for their leather goods, and he is he works really closely with us to develop the shoes, and we just recently launched a new cowboy boot, MIJA, which I'm in love with, and he kind of really helped to put that together for us, which is amazing.
So you said that most of your businesses prior were kind of on the side, a little side hustle, but with MIJA Boots, you were doing it full time. At what point did you know it's time to leave the full-time job and dedicate all of my time and energy to this business?
I don't know that there was ever really a moment where I knew and it was terrifying. The day I went in and quit, I was terrified. And it was right before we got married. It was like the worst timing. But I just knew that I wasn't being fulfilled at my current job. So I knew that I wanted to just take the risk and see what happened. And that's what we decided to do.
So you're kind of in a good position to take a few financial risks, and now they've clearly paid off, which is awesome.
Yeah. And I think Danny and I really are we bounce off of each other. So I always knew I had him if I fell and I didn't succeed and I failed. So yeah, he was amazing to have as well.
But speaking of that, because I know a lot of people listening may look to you and like, wow, she's achieved so much. I would love to start my own business one day. Or even, you're also a content creator. What, I guess is kind of a starting point. I mean, financially, you obviously need some money to kind of get started, especially when you have a product like boots, which aren't cheap to produce. Where do you start with that? Did you kind of create a budget and save up money and then, pay for everything yourself? Did you, look into lenders? How did that process look like?
So I'm a firm believer in like the tortoise situation. So build slowly. For example, again, with Cake for Breakfast, I started slow and just kind of like built the business as the sales were coming in. Kind of same thing with MIJA. I'd probably say, there was like a small initial investment, and I just ordered a very small quantity. I like to play things safe. Yeah. And then just kind of gauged the people's interest in it and then started to grow from there. I have made that mistake before with Max the Label, where I did make a big investment in the business initially and then kind of didn't really see the outcome I was hoping for in the end. So I've gone back to the kind of just slow and go.
What other kind of costs are involved? Because I think especially with a product-based business like yours, there's potential refunds, there's shipping costs, there's employees, there's manufacturing. What kind of costs could be involved if someone wanted to start a product-based business?
Yeah, I mean, it's everything. Like you said, like shipping is a lot.
Yeah.
Shipping is a lot. Obviously packaging, marketing. And if you have any sort of employees, it's a lot.
How do you keep that all organized? Like, do you do it yourself? Do you hire someone to make sure all the accounting's all good? How do you make sure everything's like on track every single month?
I do a lot of it, and then I have my assistant that helps me as well, and then we have our accountant that helps us as well.
Have you learned a lot in terms of like keeping all of your finances organized from some of your previous businesses that you're like, okay, that didn't work, or this is a better system to keep everything organized?
I definitely have learned a lot along the way, and I've learned the importance of having a good accountant on your team. Same with my husband. My husband's also an entrepreneur. He owns restaurants, and him and I have the same accountant that we work with, and she's amazing. And we learned those lessons along the way.
So we kind of touched on some of the lessons that you learned from your previous businesses and this business, how it changed how you're managing your business finances. I'm curious, has it also changed how you think about and manage your own personal family finances?
Like I said, there have been lessons that have been learned along the way. Again, both my husband and I have just realized that how important it is to just stay on top of things. And if you kind of like let things fall through the cracks, even one little thing, and then they just compile into a big mess at the end of the day. So I think if anything, we've learned to just like really get on top of things and try to stay as organized as we can, or else it just turns into a big mess.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have kind of a strategy or a system in place? So like, do you have a budget, for example, or do you have like certain savings accounts for certain purposes? What does that kind of look like for you? How do you keep it all? I feel like a lot of people feel overwhelmed with the idea of the business finances and the personal finances.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we'd keep everything kind of separate, and both my husband and I we like to call ourselves balling on a budget. So we have kind of more expensive taste, but at the same time we know that there is life that we have to pay for, and now we have a son, we bought a house, and it's so important to kind of know how much you can spend and budget yourself and keep things where they need to be.
Has your spending patterns changed over the course of the past few years, especially as like the world has changed and we're looking at high interest rates and rising costs? Has that kind of changed in terms of your business spending or your personal spending?
Yeah, definitely. Like I mentioned, we bought our house recently, and I've learned that houses are expensive. And our house is from the 70s, so we had to reno the whole thing, and so that's kind of where most of our money has gone for the past 2-3 years, and obviously now we have our son as well. So daycare costs and all that stuff have to factor into our daily spending.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet. And also, I guess, looking into the future, because you mentioned you have a son, how do you plan for kind of future costs, or even, future housing costs, future college fund, retirement? How do you also make sure you're dealing with today, and then also kind of making sure that you're going to be set up okay in the future as well?
Yeah, well, I have this imminent fear of what if one day people either stop going to Danny's restaurants or stop buying boots or stop looking at my Instagram page. And so I always have that fear in the back of my mind. So I'm very conscious of putting money away for the future. And obviously as much as we can away for cruise and yeah.
I mean, it's good to have a little fear for motivation to do the right thing and to put some money aside for you. Absolutely. I'm curious, I kind of asked you a little bit this, but what is your overall vision moving forward? Either, with your, kind of family finances, with your business, what is your kind of 5, 10, 20-year vision look like?
I'm really content with where I'm at and where my brand is at. And I just hope that in the next 5-10 years, I can continue with the path that I'm on and continue to provide a nice life for my son. And
I always love talking to entrepreneurs to see, do you have this huge vision of becoming like that billionaire, or do you want to kind of keep it small and contained so you can have more freedom? So one of my kind of final questions to you is, when you think about success or the term financial freedom, what does that mean to you? What is that, is that something that you're still working towards? Is that something that you've already achieved? What does that mean to you?
Again, I think it just means whatever your own personal happiness is. So if that is, what is going to make you the happiest, having that brand that is everywhere and huge growth in your business, then that's amazing. And if that's what you seek as your success, that's amazing. I just find that for myself, what I deem as success is just going to be my own personal happiness. And like I said, I'm content with how things are. I have my son in daycare 3 days a week, so that gives me the opportunity to work, and then I get also 2 days at home and then the weekends with him as well. So I feel like it's all about balance, and I feel like at the moment I live a nice balanced life. I'm able to come and do things like this, which is amazing. But yeah, I feel like my own personal happiness is what I kind of identify as success.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious too, just to kind of take on to that. Has your vision changed? Has the idea of success, like when you're in your 20s, changed now that you're a bit older, you have a family? Has it shifted?
Yeah, I think so. Your priorities change as you get older and as you go through life and as kind of things come at you. So yeah, it's changed.
All right, final question for you. What would be some of your kind of key advice for anyone who wants to maybe do something similar to you or just wants to start their own small business? What are some things that you wish that someone told you when you were just getting started?
I feel like just do it. And that's really all it takes, is to just start. And maybe it's small at first, but you'll grow. And if you find, your niche and your audience and you really believe in what you're creating, then it will all sort of kind of fall into place and it will come together. So yeah, I would say definitely just start.
And I guess also, since this is part of your journey too, it's okay to pivot, to change direction, and to fail.
Yes.
Don't be afraid to fail.
Yes.
That's part of the journey of success.
Yes, exactly. Like I said, I think also people are afraid to start because of the fear of failure as well. And obviously failures are going to happen. It's inevitable, mm-hmm. and it's all about lessons and learning from them. And like I've said, I've had multiple businesses before this, and they've all come with a lesson. They've all come with knowledge I've taken away from them, and it has led me to MIJA, which, is amazing.
Well, thank you so much, Tessa, for joining me for this podcast. It was a pleasure hearing your journey and getting some amazing pieces of advice. Thank you.
Thank you.
See, asking questions about money isn't so embarrassing, is it? All you have to do is start the conversation. Now, I made this podcast with Desjardins because they believe that you need to start early to build a solid financial mindset. Good habits lead to great results. There are so many amazing stories out there that help us answer those big questions we all have. But it's really important to talk about these things without taboos or judgment. I hope you enjoyed what Tessa had to say.